to get back where we were before we were so rudely interrupted, hopefully we are still working, and you were thinking about what you might be doing when you are working in the next 40 years and what that might look like. And that's sort of the thinking you might be doing now while you're planning or considering your technical electives. What do you want? And you might be thinking, oh, I'm really interested in this particular topic now. But you may want to be thinking more broad and more generally and thinking about some breadth. It's because who knows what's going to happen in the next 40 years, and a lot of times it's easier to learn some new material from an expert than maybe on your own. I mean, you are going to have to continue to learn on your own, but some of that foundational material, if you have it pretty well understood, then it's going to help you when you start to maybe learn on your own future theory or information that you need to process. In talking about technical electives, we have organized these. I know it may not seem that way, but we've tried to organize them in terms of decades, numbers that correspond to the 20s, the 30s, not in time necessarily, not the roaring 20s, which is for us actually digital signal processing or signal processing type classes. The 30s are communications classes, the 40s are controls classes, those are the signals and systems classes. So when you hear or see something in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, you might be thinking signals and systems. Now, we've run out of numbers, and for that reason, sometimes these strategies for numbering courses may not hold true, but that's the plan. So in the computer area, 175, 275, the common digit is the 7. So that's in the 70s digit and also in the 60s. So if you're interested in computer-related classes, computer engineering type classes, you'll find those probably with 60s and 70s as the decade. Electronics, bio, that might be in the 50s. And then electromagnetics and optics might be in the 80s. With that understanding, let's sort of slide through some of these courses that are being planned for the spring semester in 2016, and you should be able to find those online in the schedule of classes now. I think you have access to that. Some of these, though, are not yet in the system. We've tried to put them in the system, but they have a backlog. So when we ask something, there's usually a person between us and getting it on the system. In terms of if you're interested in the computer engineering area, if you were in an old catalog, you might actually be able to take 330A as a technical elective. That's probably no longer the case for most of you. That's probably a required class, but if not, if you are in the electrical engineering option in an older previous catalog, you might be able to take 330A, which is computational techniques, as a technical elective. Another technical elective, and I'm listing these as 400, 500 in anticipation of our discussion about the Accelerated Master's program. Agent-based simulation, if you want to try to better understand agents or sort of swarms or things that may work together, how do you put that into a simulation environment and learn from it? That's 408. Another class is our apps class. That's the software engineering, but it's really you're designing an app to do something, and usually that's now, well, in the summer, they built apps to control cars, autonomous vehicles. You may not be doing that in this class, but you may have the ability to select the application that you want to use or to design in that class. Right now in the electronics and bio area, I have listed the measurement and data analysis. That's a bioengineering class, but you actually have the ability to see how your electrical engineering skills play into measuring human information from our body or from our system. Another class that is somewhat in the electronics area, and it's not in the 50s, that I should mention is ECE 415, which you would want to make sure you have the right prerequisites, but that's basically microelectronic processing or manufacturing and the environment. So if you're building semiconductor chips, what are the environmental impacts of that? That's what you're looking into with microelectronics, manufacturing, and the environment, is what are the environmental impacts that might be needed to be addressed or understood or thought about when you're manufacturing semiconductor devices. That's ECE 415. That's a good question. The question was, is there any design in that? And I can't answer that question. What I would suggest you do is email Dr. Philipposian, who's the instructor, and see if he could give you a syllabus. That should be on the schedule of classes in terms of the instructors associated with these classes, and most of those are accurate. Some of those are still being changed as we speak. But you could then ask, is there a design element or component in that class? And what is the design element? Is it chemical engineering related, or will I be okay? Will I have the right background to work or be successful in that class? In the electromagnetics and optics, we have a photo-solar energy class in 414A, and so some students are interested in power, energy. That's one connection that we provide in that area or direction. That's more of a optics, electronics mix, but if you then look at the next two classes, those are more related to electromagnetics. One is the antenna theory, which is 484, and the other is actually you wouldn't be able to take this unless you have taken 486 already or this semester. This is now 488, which is the microwave circuit 2, and that's designing active devices in the microwave frequency range. So that one would be restricted in terms of having you have already taken 486 this semester in the fall. But if you think that that looks interesting and you aren't graduating for another year or year and a half, you might then say, oh, I need to take 486 in the fall so that I can then next spring take 488 or 588. Then we get into the 20s, 30s, and 40s, which in the spring semester, it's typically the digital part of signals and systems. We have 429, which is digital signal processing, Z-transforms, filtering. 435A is a follow-on to 340A, so this would have to really require that you have taken the new version of 340, which is 340A, which I'm assuming most of you have had, which is Introduction to Communications. 435A is then Digital Communications. Let me make sure I'm getting the right title, but 435A is then focused on digital communication systems. And then 442 is the Digital Controls class. So there's the digital piece of all of those kinds of signals and systems classes: signal processing, communication, and control. Now, before you get too set on selecting sort of in isolation your technical electives, you may want to refer to this chart. You're going, what? but this tells you maybe how the courses are going to overlap or conflict with time. So I don't think today you can be in two places at once. Maybe in 40 years before you retire, you'll have that figured out. But unfortunately now you may not be able to do that, and consequently you may want to look at this and say, oh, I can't take antenna theory and, let's say, the digital communications. Now that I see this, I remember that I failed to mention one class that should be up here, and now I can actually cheat a little bit. I apologize for you that can't cut your paper and then put a piece of tape in there, but I can sort of do that now. This is then 451A, which is device physical electronics. It's basically worrying about how to describe devices in a solid state, in plasma, in vacuum. How do you model those or describe those physically? And I'm assuming that most of you know where to go to find the course descriptions. Is that true? In the U of A website, they keep changing all of these websites, which I know it will change in 40 years. But if you click on the little menu item and then go to current students and then try to find registration and registering for classes, and then course descriptions, go to the current catalog, and then you'll find course descriptions, and then you can go to the electrical and computer engineering part of this website, and I'm really doing this to remind myself of what I just told you was available or will be on the books eventually, which is Introduction to Physical Electronics. And if you click on that, then it's talking about the motion of particles in a vacuum, plasma, and solid state, some elements of quantum mechanics, statistics, and device electronics. So that's Introduction to Physical Electronics, and you can do that in terms of getting some information as far as the course description on all of the ECE classes by following that process or navigation process to that page. So that was Introduction to Physical Electronics 451, which is another one that you couldn't take simultaneously with digital control. I think it's going to also be offered at the 11 to 12:15 time frame on a Tuesday, Thursday. And I will post this information or this video and maybe the notes to this so that you can go back so you don't have to try to figure this out right now, but hopefully you'll have some time to start maybe highlighting which classes you think you might be interested in, and oh, I now have a time conflict. I need to now make the hard call or the tough call. Which of these do I want to take at this point in my educational process? And you can see that Tuesdays and Thursdays are pretty loaded, and the Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are not so loaded, especially in the early part of the day. So if you like to sleep late and get up early on Tuesday and Thursday, but sleep late on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which I'm told you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to have a routine, but sometimes best laid plans are just that. They're plans and not actions. But you can then maybe design a work schedule or take your other classes outside of ECE as technical electives, which could be in the math department, the physics department, computer science, and maybe those would then allow you to fit in on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday timeline of schedules. Do you have any questions on Spring? So the ECE 506 is reconfigurable computing. That's in a computer engineering area. But that one you could take if you were, well, if you have the appropriate GPA as an undergrad, you can take 500 level classes, and you can take 500 level classes in the accelerated master's program. And those could then be counted towards technical electives in your undergraduate program. But that's 506 is reconfigurable computing, and I would recommend that you go to the website. Let's do that and just see if my thinking on that is consistent with what is actually described in the course description. So you're now changing or modifying maybe the software and hardware to accommodate the particular problem or problems that you're having to use your computing power for. So if you need to have particular architecture that would help you solve this problem more efficiently or better, then how does that work? Don't ask me. But that's what you would learn in 506. And that one is sitting there sort of by itself on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if you're looking at, this is what was happening now, so you could anticipate that most of this will happen in the fall of 16 in terms of what courses might you think about taking in the next semester beyond the spring semester. The fall usually is a lot more in terms of offering, and we have more technical electives offered in the fall. And some of these you'll need to realize that, for example, these two are required in the computer engineering option, but you could take these as a technical elective in the electrical engineering option. And the same way with, we will get to it in a minute, I think, in the 80s with the electromagnetics 381. If you're in computer engineering, maybe you want to learn a little bit about fields and Maxwell's equations and understand that, because who knows what's going to happen in 40 years, even if you're a computer engineer. So here in the fall, you can anticipate having 411, which is really sort of a follow-on class to 330A. 411 is numerical modeling. 421 is a complexity class. How do you deal with complexity? How do you model it? 462 is a follow-on to 369. So if you liked 369 as a computer architecture class, you could step into 462 and extend that knowledge. 467 is computer graphics and computer-aided design. That one, okay, I'm getting confused on who's going to be here on on sabbatical, but I think that one will be okay. 478 is computer networking. How do computers talk to each other? And 479 is an artificial intelligence class. So there's quite a few there that you might be interested in for fall semester of 16. And if I'm going too fast, let me know, but I just sort of put these down yesterday so that I could quickly scroll through them. In the 50s, then again, this would be for the students that are in the computer engineering option. They could take the device electronics class 352 as a technical elective. You might want to think about taking a digital VLSI system design class. That's 407. Then I don't think this one will probably be taught, since isn't that the one I said we would be you might be interested in the spring. It's right now in the spring of 2016. There's another class somewhat related, which is semiconductor processing in 446. There they may not be worrying so much about the environmental impact of building solid-state devices or semiconductor devices. And I don't think this one will probably be offered either, 304A, which is the follow-on to 351C. Those are the microelectronics. Now in the electromagnetics and optics, we have 381A, as I said before, that's the electromagnetics class. 434, which is how do optics and electronics sort of fit together, or how do we understand the properties of electrical and optical devices. Then here's the 486, if you're interested. This is now the passive circuit design for microwave circuits or microwave engineering. And there might be 459, which is fundamental of optics for electrical engineers. And obviously, if you're a computer engineer, you could take that. It's just the title is specific to electrical engineering. But now, what are the fundamental optical theories and properties that might be helpful to get into that particular field? Then in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, or the signals and systems area, we have the analog control class, which is 441A, or the automatic control class is usually the title that we are using. And then we have optical communication systems, which is the 430 class. And I think I wrote that because that's maybe where you will find the notes and the link to this video, if the video even works. And we'll see. Here is the weekly schedule for the fall semester, and you can see that it is a lot busier than the spring semester, and so you do want to make sure that you are considering time in addition to the courses that you're interested in taking. Questions on courses, technical electives? You're clear on what can and can't be taken. You can take pretty much any engineering 300, 400 outside of ECE, physics, math, computer science as a technical elective, but we usually restrict that to 2 such classes that we allow you to take. Which classes? The ones that we're offering now. The question was about which classes will be offered in the spring. You can probably anticipate not too much changing between the springs, meaning what's offered this spring will probably be offered in the spring of 2017. Is that what you're asking?
Well, there are
Oh, I see. So you're maybe asking if there's an overlap here in the fall, is there a chance that that class might roll over into the spring and be taught in the spring? Probably not. So if it's in the fall, typically we're not teaching 400 level classes 2 semesters in 1 academic year. So if it hasn't been taught in the spring, it probably will be taught in the fall. But if it was taught in the fall, it probably won't repeat in the spring. Is that what you were asking? Yes. So I wouldn't count on, oh, I'll just wait for the spring to take this class that's now being offered in the fall. That probably won't happen. It probably won't be available in the spring. Other questions about sequencing or topics for technical electives? If not, let's talk a little bit about graduate school. Yes? No. So if you want to take, for example, a math class at the 400 level that's not a required class in your program, then you can take that as a technical elective. Typically, if it looks like a traditional math, physics, engineering class at the 400 level, that usually goes without saying, and that it would be okay to take as, but if you're concerned, for example, let's say that there was a physics class for education majors to help teach high school physics at the 500 or at the 400 level. We probably wouldn't count that as a technical elective. But most of the physics classes, most of the math classes, you should be okay to take as a technical elective, but you're restricted to only having 2 of those in your 6 or 7 technical electives that you have. Now, in the computer engineering option, we actually have 1 technical elective that you're required to take a computer engineering class. That could be one of ours in ECE, or it could be one in computer science. So in that case, you could have 3 computer science classes at the technical elective level. Did that answer your question? So if we move into the accelerated master's program, and this is a special way to sort of make your time here very efficient. If you're doing well, if you're performing well, and by that I mean you have a cumulative undergrad GPA of 3.3, then you're eligible for the AMP program. And what this allows you to do is take the 500 level version or a 500 level class, up to 4 of those, and here's the key word, up to. You don't have to take 4. You may say, oh, I want to do the AMP and take one of my classes at the graduate level. That's okay. Or maybe you want to take 2, 1 a semester. That's okay also. What that does is that allows you to basically count those 2 classes towards your undergraduate degree program and towards your graduate degree program, which if you went into our master's program and said, I'm going to do the non-thesis option, which means you're taking courses only, that's 10 classes that you would need to take. Well, now you've basically removed up to 4 of those from your master's program. That now says, oh, I need to take 3 classes in the fall and 3 classes in the spring if you were on the traditional fall-spring, and I'll have my master's in 1 year after finishing my bachelor's in ECE. So this is a good way of sort of efficiently pursuing a master's degree. What we are learning is it is a challenge if you try to take 2 graduate level classes each semester, let's say in your senior year. Students find that a little bit of a challenge, especially when they're doing the capstone sequence. But it's doable, and it's allowed up to 4 of those classes. So that would be a nice way to pursue. Now, some of the requirements, in order to apply, you have to have a minimum of 75 undergraduate units, and then you can start taking these 500 level classes as a senior. So you have to have 90 or more units or have senior status in order to take classes at the 500 level. But that's why I was sort of showing these 400, 500. If you like that topic, you could now take the 500 version of that, but you don't have to restrict yourself to dual numbered classes in the AMP. You could take the reconfigurable computing class, 506, that's not dual numbered, but it is a 500 level class, and now you can count it towards your undergraduate and your graduate degree program. That's a very quick overview, but one thing is it saves you a little money. You don't have to take the GRE. We waive the GRE requirement, which maybe the money's not the issue, but the time. You don't have to worry about studying for the GRE and spending a morning or afternoon taking the graduate record examination, the GRE, which is an examination that typically you do take in order to apply and get into graduate programs. So that's waived, and I think the last time I looked, that was $75 or something. So it's price of a textbook, or a little less than the price of a textbook in today's dollars, and that's where I really get nervous, is when I think, what are things going to cost in 40 years when you're thinking about retiring? Do you have questions about the AMP? And just in the other thing that you could do is, maybe I should stop recording, but I won't. You could get into the AMP, and you don't have to necessarily stay here, meaning stay as a full-time student and finish your master's. Now you have maybe 3, 2, or 4 graduate level classes. Maybe you now go to work, and now the work is paying for your graduate education. We do have an online master's program. You could go somewhere clear across the globe and finish your master's degree. Maybe it's not going to be in 1 calendar year, but I guess it could be if you went somewhere and said, I'm dedicating my time to taking these 6 classes online, and now I have my master's degree. So you have a lot of options, and that's what I think I would like to sort of leave you with in terms of this accelerated master's program. How much quicker? Well, in terms of, it depends on how you pursue the master's degree, but it's probably not going to happen in 1 academic year. If you tried to pursue a master's degree, graduate classes are a little more challenging than an undergraduate class, and so to take 5 graduate classes in a semester, I don't see that. That typically doesn't happen. So here, if you were in the AMP, now to get 10 classes completed, if you've now completed 4 already when you finish your bachelor's degree, now you just have 6 remaining, and that's 3 a semester, and that's doable if you're a full-time student. So you've now shaved basically a semester off, if not more, of your graduate program. And that can be a considerable savings in terms of the wages that you can now accrue in that semester that you're now gainfully employed after graduating. Maybe not so much the cost, but it is an opportunity cost that you're now able to. So that's, I think, the time. You just have to sort of think, what is my plan, and how do I want to pursue this? So now, when do you decide to do the AMP? You would want to do it really about as quickly as you meet some of these thresholds, so that you have more time. For example, maybe you have 3 semesters remaining and you're already at senior status, or you're close to that. You could apply in the spring or now and be admitted into the AMP. You could take 1 class in the spring, 1 class in the fall, and then you're graduating the next spring. Now you've acquired 3 graduate classes as an undergrad, and that might be an efficient way to go also. So it's probably better, it gives you more time, But if you find that you're in your very last semester or getting close to being in your last semester, it's still not too late to apply for the AMP. If you save one graduate class off, that's a savings. Now, what you won't find, though, is you won't be able to transfer these classes to another graduate program because they've already counted towards an undergraduate degree. So if you're wanting to transfer graduate level classes to another institution, to another program, you probably need to take those as graduate classes here and not as something that you're taking that's going to be counted twice, at once in the undergrad and once in the grad. So those are some questions. And if you do have questions like that, you can always send an email to the graduate advisor. And this should be on our website, gradadvisor@ece.arizona.edu, and then you can get your questions answered that way, if I haven't satisfactorily answered, which I... So this piece, for in-depth info, you could probably look at our website. There's a graduate handbook on the graduate website, and you could probably find a little bit more information. But if you have specific questions that you're not finding the answer to, then ask our graduate advisor, or we do have a director of graduate studies. You could ask him and get your questions answered that way. So now there should be, we have had several people pass through the department, and one such person was representing a government institution, and he said you should have ample opportunity for funding. And I think he was referring mostly to maybe grants and scholarships, but there are also faculty that are working, having research activities, and you might be able to plug into their research programs here in the department, and they would then fund you or support you towards your graduate degree program. So there are quite a few options, and again, I think I would refer you to our graduate website, that you could not only apply on your own to different fellowships, scholarships, you could talk to faculty here in our department, and they might be wanting to bring you into their research program and support you that way. I'm going to say that's okay for now, and good luck with your decisions on technical electives in the AMP.